Hello again, it's Richard Askam here from the Lighthouse on Print Island. Another great opportunity to take this wonderful 360-degree view of the world from the island, from the print industry, and meet some interesting people. And I've got a very interesting person with me today, and I did a little bit of research into David before we sat down today. And he's either an American football player that plays for the Baltimore Ravens. That was one David Pittman that I found. He's either an Aussie Rules player that plays in the Australian Football League, another Aussie, David Pittman that I found, or is he the one that's with me today, legend of the print industry and B2B the whole world over? I suspect, I don't know, maybe we should do a vote on this, but I suspect, David, that you're probably the third one. Is that right?
Yeah, I am. Yes, it's one of those historical situations with my family name where there actually is a book written by my great aunt about the history of the Pittman family, and it's actually very uninteresting. It's a few little anecdotes. The first outside broadcast by the BBC, for example, was apparently a recording of birds singing with the dawn chorus. Because of all the equipment involved back at that time, it wasn't birds. It was apparently my great aunt who was at that time whistling was a thing. You went to theatres to listen to a whistler. That's about as exciting as my family history.
Okay.
So no, I'm not the American footballer. I'm, I'm not athletic in any way, as you might be able to see from no, I'm very much the David Pittman, the former B2B editor. Worked in the print industry for 18 years now, and now in the marketing side, in the what I used to call the dark side when I was in editorial.
Okay.
It's not
Yeah.
the dark side. It's very much
Okay.
the
Well,
light side.
everybody
That's very much me. I'm not.
Everybody has their own view of that, David, and we will let the audience decide. But I find it quite fascinating that your claim to fame is that your great aunt was the founder of fake news.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. So maybe I am related to the American.
Good. Well, listen, for those of you watching,
I was always related to.
we've got a slight time delay here, so apologies for that. I'm not quite sure why, because we're both in the same country, but somehow the software is just got a wrinkle in it this morning, so apologies for that. David, I'll try and bridge that if I can, and we'll fill the gap we'll whistle in the gap if that's what it comes down to. But just for those of you watching today, David, if you wouldn't mind, just take a couple of minutes and give us a flyby of your career to date and how you ended up really being so close to the print industry.
Yeah, so I trained as a journalist, and then I fell into business to business journalism via the UK timber industry. I worked for the Timber Trades Journal magazine, and then I moved around within that publishing house into a couple of other B2B titles. Cranes Today, big lifting machinery, and its sister title, Hoist, which is purely about overheads, factory lifting machinery, which obviously I see everywhere when I go into factories. Again, I'm like, oh, wow, look, all this stuff. And then I got into print and packaging. I was looking for a new job, and I got offered the potential to go and work with Labels and Labelling magazine, and that was in 2011. And I joined them as their package print news / editor person. And then as that magazine evolved and the narrow web industry evolved, I got more and more involved with the label side, from flexible packaging, folding carton. And then just prior to COVID, I took the decision to move to edit digital labels and packaging, which, as you can imagine, during COVID was absolutely brilliant because digital went absolutely bananas. I was talking to any digital printer during the COVID years, and they were just frantic. They couldn't print enough. The anecdote is that we drunk too much and didn't wipe our bottoms very well in the UK because we were printing beer labels and toilet roll packaging like it's going out of business. And then about 18 months ago, I made the decision to try the marketing side of the industry, and very much enjoying it. It's been a real learning curve. It's been a different experience, but I'm really enjoying it. It's been it's helped me grow, and been brilliant working with Think B2B and Joe Stevenson. Who, if you're going to do a poll of who knows who, I think most people will know Joe Stevenson far more than they will know who I am. So, it's been really good working with them, with doing that, and being able to maintain my career in the packaging space, because I've been in it 18 years now, and I've grown to love it. I love all
Yeah.
the people. I love the applications, the processes, the whole shebang is fantastic. It's brilliant. It's so innovative and exciting, and there's so much potential, but there's so much still to unlock, and interesting ways of how we evolve and grow the industry, ready for PPWR, EPR, all the German ink ordinance, all those things that are coming up, and fundamentally sort of the minutiae of print and packaging. But actually, at the end of the day, everyone gets up and turns the press on, not just because we can, but because they're producing something
Yeah.
that's got real value and means something to consumers and
Yeah.
brands. And at the end of it, that's what print and packaging is and does, in my opinion. It's an engagement vehicle that drives actual value and meaning. It means something. So.
And I think that gets lost, David, in translation, really, in terms of what the print industry actually is. Because if you were to zoom out and look at it as a contributor to GDP across the globe, it is one of the biggest manufacturing industries on the planet. And because it's been boiled down into various small pieces and small strands and specialisms and so on and so forth, it's almost diluted itself in terms of it's how people view it. We said before we came on that the print industry has never been particularly good at talking about itself to strangers. It's very good at talking about itself to itself. So how, as a journalist, and you're very well placed to sort of see this, I think. How do you see the industry as a whole, not just in its fragments, getting over that and being, one of the reasons we founded Print Island was to give a voice to the industry, to the outside world, people that don't live on the island. How do you suggest that the industry builds a boat
Yeah,
and goes and meets some strangers?
yeah. How do we get out there, and see the wider world? We love, as we said about earlier. The print loves print, but it's not very good at making everyone else love print. Everyone just thinks that print's dirty. This dirty process, and we're killing trees and wasting paper, and now we're polluting the seas with all the printed packaging and this, that, and the other. How do we get out? I think the key sort of consideration challenge for me is finding the way to engage with the sort of end use and the verticals, because a lot of brands and retailers, they still sort of just view packaging as it's a commodity product and labels that. You've got 300 labels in your car, and when you start saying things like that, people just sort of, their mind switch off to it. They don't switch on to the actual value of it. And as I was saying, that the actual the role packaging and labelling, but folding cartons particularly, and flexible packaging play in engagement and driving value and bringing joy to consumers and in our daily interactions. I always say to anyone, have you ever? You work in the packaging industry, and what's that? And I go, have you ever bought anything ever? And they go, well, yeah. And I go, well, there you go. That whole thing about Apple and how the
Yeah.
iPhone box. That's such a but that's entirely delivered through packaging. If you went into the Apple store and you went, oh, can I have the new iPhone 16? And they went, okay, hang on, here's a brown paper bag, sir. And you went, don't think so. I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure that's how that works. And again, when you when you consider that, we as an industry, I think, need to find a way of better communicating the end use application story. We get very hung up on technology, and absolutely, it's the be all and end all for a lot of people when it's fundamental to what we do. Absolutely, without the flexo presses, without the inkjet engines, without the guys in the labs looking through high speed microscopes at drop formations and how they interact with materials and web swim and things like that, none of it would be possible. But as I said earlier, we don't do it just for the heck of doing it. We do it because at the end of it, somebody wants something that's got real value, needs high quality, that drives sales, engagement, gamification, the use of smartphones, how they interact with the digital world, how we make packaging interact with digital environments, and there's real tangible value in it. But for some reason, it's lost in the narrative. So one of the things we need to do is make better, more noise, better use of of what we do in terms of applications and end uses. Yes, you're a label printer, but you know what? That label goes on a bottle, goes on a on anything, on everything, on an Amazon box. But at the end of the day, that Amazon box is bringing me something that I've chosen to spend my money on. As a consumer, and in the times of, particularly in the world where we're talking about cost of living and, the inflation rate is just bounced up again in the UK. And, we're looking at things. How do we, people are still spending an awful lot of money, quite frankly. I was actually out for dinner the other night with my mum, and we got hit with a pretty big bill, and she looked around and she went, "This restaurant's full up." I mean, my mum's 78, so she generally looked around and went, all these people spending like 100, 150 quid each just on dinner.
Sorry, David. It was suggested to me the other day, actually, that the world isn't short of money; it's short of confidence. And I think, given the times that we're in, and you've only got to put the news on any given day to see the times that we're in, and that does make people pull their heads in a little bit. Although rather interesting, as you say about the restaurant example, and we've seen similar. And you sit there and you go, what recession? Not that we're in recessionary times, but we're in difficult times. And I think your point about labeling is really a good one. I mean, I spent 30 years in the wine business. And what I didn't realize was I was spending 30 years in the labeling business, because if you've ever seen a bottle of wine without a label on it, you can't sell it, because you need the visual. We buy with our eyes as consumers. And this is where I think the print industry is brilliant on one hand and then average on the other, because it makes brilliant things and then it's very average at telling people. It responds to requests. But you mentioned that you're now in the world of marketing, and of course, the world of marketing is opening people's eyes to the products that are available that you can buy. What would you do differently, as if you were a marketeer today? Let's take labeling as the example in that segment. What would you do differently?
It's as I said, the what we need to shift away from is to focus on the big shiny. We've invested X amount in this machine, in all those guys buying Skodix machines, which brilliant bits of kit, absolutely fabulous work, brilliant work. Really like seeing a Skodix print sample coming off the end of one of their machines. But I just don't see any of those people, and I know a fair few of them. They just don't seem to shout from the rooftops about it, and if they do, they're doing it in a very sort of covert. They might go to, one of the big things I really got into just at the end of my sort of editorial career, and which I brought forward with me into the marketing side, is there's so many of these end-use application shows that exist, and I think they've got real potential to exploit better. We just don't. You don't ever see. You see a few, but you don't see many print and packaging companies, suppliers going to things like Speciality and Fine Food Fair, which is one I've been to a couple of times, and is in London, and it's a really interesting show. But you got all these guys, these mum and pop type guys, they're small, what we used to call, what we call craft manufacturers, but they used to during COVID, were mixing gin in their bathtub because they couldn't looking for a job. But they're all, these guys are all sort of one, maybe might have a family member helping out in the business, but they're doing everything, and they just haven't got the time, the knowledge base, quite frankly, that some of the big, we talk about leveling the playing field. Digital particularly leveled the playing field in terms of allowing smaller orders at a brilliant high quality. But it sort of falls apart when you think that the people that are buying those types of products probably don't have the level of knowledge, but just because they've never had to do it, and they don't do it, and they just see it as packaging. Yeah, I need some packaging to put my product on the shelf. But if you've got, and there's so many, I forget it's a massive number of companies just in the UK are technically SMEs. There's a huge amount of these businesses, huge potential. And I remember, the person told me she's not in the industry anymore. Why are we all fascinated by food as well? We're all fascinated by food, but there's so many other things. The example I was giving, if you look at vape. There's so many bits, there. I don't vape, but all like the little pads, everything that comes in a box. I mean, if you go into any of those, sort of retail outlets where they have those great big shelving units of vape products and all their different flavours as well. So you've got the SKU profile. Whether you want watermelon, who's smoking watermelon, for example? Grape, somebody's doing it. So it needs packaging. So you get all these things, but they're it's a huge market. But we just get fascinated on beer and wine. As I said earlier, we drank during COVID. We drank too much, and
I was going to say, you mentioned, brewing gin in your bathtub during COVID. I think a lot of people sat in their bathtub drinking gin during COVID. So there's a great correlation there. But you're absolutely right in terms of we as consumers, and maybe the fault is on the wrong side of this argument. We as consumers largely, not totally, but largely disregard the packaging element. It is just a carrier for the product in many ways. And I guess that goes back to the dawn of time when really it was that brown box that advertised that well-known company, Fragile. And we sort of, other than the Apple example which you gave, which was a thing of beauty, we've largely seen packaging as a way to get to the product. So have we inadvertently fed the packaging industry with our own lack of interest in their creativity, and as a result they've almost diminished, they've reduced their own creativity as a result? Do you think it's our fault?
To some extent. The great example that sits with me at the minute is that in 2013 when they launched the Share a Coke campaign in Europe.
Yeah.
That came back last year.
Yep.
Great. Well, great innovation, guys. Well done. There have been.
Well, I've got something to add to that. Just before you go into that, David, I've got something to add to that because, as you may well know, and I'm sure you do, I was involved in the original Share a Coke campaign in Europe, and that's kind of how I got into my world of speaking in the print industry anyway. And I was asked this very question: why have Coke come back with exactly the same campaign 11 years after or 12 years after the original one? And my answer was quite simple: TikTok. Because 12 years ago, TikTok did not exist as an amplifier for brands. And now, of course, it does. So they haven't had to rethink the campaign. They've just had to rethink the vehicle by which they can amplify it. So I'll give them a free pass on that one, because I sort of agree with you. And when I saw it again, I thought, oh, come on, lads, surely we could have moved on from this.
I'm not necessarily laying the blame. Not blame. It's not blame. I'm not necessarily pitching that at the brand's door.
Yeah.
More that as an industry. Again, I was involved in the creation of the technical story that introduced that to the market. Andy Thomas, who I worked with and still work with now, and still doing a brilliant job. Spoke with Greg Bentley at Coke and did a brilliant deep dive into the technical about how this whole network driven by Peter at S House and yada yada yada. And everyone was like, brilliant, yes, digital, it's finally, this is the one that's going to push it, make it happen. But and now, to be fair, digital has gone off in other ways. It's done other things in other ways. But this I mean, it was never personalisation anyway, mass customisation.
No.
But to me, it just sort of feels like an example of a sort of laissez-faire attitude, a bit of, well, we do. COVID changed a lot of things, and we speak about that, and COVID did an awful lot of terrible things, but it did force a lot of good things through. One of the things, we're using, an online video chat system right now. That's remote working, home working, etc., etc. But so many people have fallen back on sort of old bad habits, I guess you might say, I think, in the industry, and it's a little bit disconcerting. You sort of go, come on, guys, shouldn't we all?
And this
We're all
is
supposed to have come out of this game, right? Come on, let's do it.
This is one of the problems, David, as I see it, and I say this a lot to people, when I'm chatting about the future of the industry and how we attract the next generation into this wonderful 1,000-year-old industry that we are part of, and that expression, the one that everybody hates, that's the way we've always done it, is largely the epitaph to all dying businesses, and something that was put to me a few weeks ago, and I'd like your opinion on it. We live in a world right now, I mentioned TikTok in regard to Sheriko. We live in a world right now where everybody, or seemingly everybody, wants to be a content creator. And it was put to me the other day by an advertising agency in London that actually if the print industry started describing its products as content, then it would get the attention of much more people, because the word print is too heavily associated with the past, newspapers. That's what most people, I'm not saying industry, I'm saying most people on the street see print in one way. And yet everything you see around me, everything you see around you has got print on it. But we don't see it that way. We call it photographs, or we call it, as I say, content. Is there an argument to almost rebadge the outputs from the industry in different terms to get different attention?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I coined the phrase "print. It's not what you think it is" a few years ago when we were actually at I was actually part of a group sort of brainstorming session. That was at an event in Las Vegas, actually. Again, talking about print, and the opportunities take you anywhere and do everything. It's brilliant. But we that sort of what sprung to my mind was print. It's not what you think it is, because people hear the word, as you say, people hear the word print and they go, "Oh, print. That's newspapers and but everything's print. Everything's got print on it. People don't see them and don't need to see them, but those printed labels in your car, there's 300 plus, and they're all there. They've got to be highly functional. They're there for safety. They've got to be there to maintain and exist right through the lifetime of your car, which can be decades in a hot, greasy oil, and that's the sort of relatively boring side of labels and labeling and packaging, I guess, But you look at supply chains. Supply chains wouldn't exist without labels.
Yeah.
And this is before we've even got to. I'm actually looking at a sample in front of me, which has got a rude word on it because it was produced by an independent sort of brand owner who made peanut butter.
Okay. Which letter does it start with? At that particular rude word, and we'll decide whether we can use it.
No, you can't. It starts with an M. Well, I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, he might duck his nose if you know what I mean. So they launched.
It's all right. We all know what it is now. We don't have to say it.
Sorry. He launched. He opened a skateboard shop, I think it was, and he had a T-shirt with a fake brand on it for this for this peanut butter brand, and everyone started coming in and asking him, "Where do I get that peanut butter?" So he launched this peanut butter brand, and with digitally printed labels off a desktop Epson printer at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at it now. So to how do we make this more relatable to the wider world, to the rest of the industry, to the young people who, and again, the idea was for that to be disruptive on the shelf, because you had a rude word on it to try and disrupt quite an established industry that is, jams and spreads.
Well, I was going to say,
Tesco made him put a silver scrap. silver scratch off.
Take your mind back to French Connection, and FC UK, which was their branding campaign for a lot of years that caused a lot of controversy and was a highly successful marketing campaign. I think we lose a little bit in terms of what print can do. And this is kind of my point. I mean, you mentioned labeling, of course. I'm a Formula One fan. Every weekend, I'm looking at a Formula One car that's got fresh labels on it, so fresh sponsors, and it's not seen as print. It's branding, it's sponsorship, it's vehicle wrapping, it's you name it. There is a world out there that utilizes print to do the things that it wants, but it doesn't connect the want with the production, does it?
Yeah. No, but as you to go back sort of where to the start of this point, I think perhaps print becomes an industry term, and when we're speaking externally, say we need to find whether that is content, whether that's livery on vehicles,
Yeah.
or
Well, it can be what it needs to be for the market that you're talking to, doesn't it?
Yeah, yes, yeah. So they don't, because again, they don't. We, as I alluded to earlier, the royal we. I'm not investing really thousands of pounds, but and we as an industry get very excited about the big shiny, and I bought this new machine, and we're doing all this clever stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm not convinced, and I'm still not, that brands hugely care how it's done. Is it good? Is it great quality? Not really good quality. Is it great quality? Is it in line with our sustainability? Ethoses and requirements, because that's the key differentiator at the minute. And and again, print doesn't really talk hugely about how what it can do in terms of improving the sustainability credentials of brands. It's just sort of rolling along with the narrative at the minute, and you sort of think, okay, I feel like there's an opportunity being this, and from a marketing, from my marketing position now, I'm trying to elevate where we can the clients I'm working with and helping with to get them to get that message through, and one of the key ways to do that, I think, at the minute, is again to move away from this fascination with machinery and to humanise. It's the story. We're all people at the end of the day. We're all B2B is P2P. People to people at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like you and I say, chatting. We go to conferences, and we don't go to conferences or exhibitions, sorry, just to see big bits of machinery. We go there to see our friends, our colleagues, our peers, our contacts, who are normally stood in front of a big bit of machinery, to be fair. But we're not just there because of the machine. So it's this weird little disparity between why we're there and what we're doing. It's sort of it's
There's a risk, isn't there? And I say this with all due respect to everybody out there in the industry. There is a risk that you become seen as a machinery enthusiast, a little bit like the people that love restoring steam trains and then spending all weekend polishing them. And I get that, and I admire it. But you can't put yourself over as a 21st, second century organization and industry if you're still referring to Gutenberg. There needs to be some progress.
You've just made a really interesting comment there that I picked up on a good few years ago now. I think it may well have been a D-Scoop event with one of those futurologists that they used to like to have come and say, this is what's going to happen. But the point one of them made was that you don't often hear people talking about 22nd century. We used to talk about the 20th, looking future forward at what's coming in the 21st century technologies. No one talks. I know we're a long way away, don't get me wrong, but we are now, and I wrote about this the other day in a blog, nearer 2050 than we are the year 2000, which is
scary,
so depressing in so many ways. But scary, depressing, upsetting. I've got always that grey hair again. We're rapidly moving towards that, but no one seems to be sort of speaking in those sort of languages. I thought, okay, we are looking relatively short-termist. I think we talk about 2030 with PPWR and EPR, and we had all the sustainability ambitions for 2025, which in many cases didn't happen, didn't come off. Have had to push back. And there's some people starting to look sort of towards 2050 of, okay, we're going to be, driving all electric cars or whenever. I think that's by that sort of date. But no one's really talking about, the next big generation of technologies. What's happening? Has technology plateaued? That's not the question. I get,
Well, that's a good.
where is the innovation coming?
It's a good question, David, and we're rapidly approaching not only the end of time, but also the end of our time today on the Lighthouse. And I kind of want to get your thoughts from that future perspective before we go, and cast your mind back to that wonderful television program that we all used to watch as kids called Tomorrow's World, and it used to predict what we'd all be doing in 50 years' time. And as you say, electric cars, flying cars, we'd all be living on the moon. What genuinely, as that futurist that you just mentioned, what would you like to see? Not what you think will happen. What would you like to happen in the next 50 years in the print industry?
In the print industry over the next well, let's say over the next 75 years. Let's go to the 2200. It needs to get better at communicating outwardly. It needs to be more forward thinking overall as an industry. There are pockets of innovation and a few people that really do push the boundaries, but there's so many people, maybe for the right reason, that they're doing good work. And as we mentioned earlier, well, that's the way it is. We do good work, we make good money, carry on, do as we do. I suspect that's probably might be the silent death knell for a few people that may come a cropper. So I think over the next 75 years, print is going to have to evolve into something else. It's going to have to change how it identifies. We talk about gender fluidity is a big thing that's happened in recent years. I think print, industry fluidity. We need to not be print. Basically, we are print, and print is brilliant. But do you know what? Print, to get more young people into print, we need to engage with them on TikTok and more, and do more things like that. We need to promote and market print, not market what we do. Again, I use the term. So I'm caught in the trap there. I'm using print in a way that I probably shouldn't. So we need to market what we do to the wider world in a different way, and evolve and say change. Print is not what you think it is. It's, print is many things. It's all encompassing, to be honest. It's everything and anything. I will say this: if anyone wants to get into print, you can do anything. You can get into sales, business development, marketing, design. It will take you around the world. I've been lucky enough; it's taken me, yourself, I'm sure as well, all over the place. If you're into that, that's great. If you're a home bird, you can, that works as well. It's almost all things to all men. Print.
Yeah, it really is
as a industry.
Yeah, no, it really is, and that's it. That's a great way to finish this episode of the Lighthouse, David. And if we can find a way of expressing not what it is, but what it's for, better, over the coming years, then I genuinely, I think the industry's got a bright future. One of the reasons I set up Print Island was to highlight the brightness of that future and communicate it in a multiple ways, because it's multiple things. So we talk about print, and then we talk about everything that it does. Those are the things to highlight. And I've really appreciated your input today. So thank you for coming on to Print Island. And as an ex-American footballer, Aussie rules footballer, and bird whistle impersonating generational legend, David Pittman, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Richard. It's been a pleasure. It's been nice to join you in the Lighthouse. It's been great.